Alright, and hello. You had asked me to put together some sort of drawing or representation to show a building for a squash court, a single squash court, to be built somewhere near Naples. And I may not have even gone in the actual direction you want to go with this, but I will show you where I went to arrive at a two-sheet set of drawings, which is just a floor plan and a section view. And along with this film, a person should get a pretty good idea, I would think, of what you're looking for, if indeed I have arrived at anything close to what you were looking for. And I began my design. That was easy enough because the squash court was going to have to happen. So I began my design by researching exactly the dimensions it was going to take for a squash court. And I used various sources, but mainly I used the international squash court specifications. And basically familiarize myself with this whole document. It's all in millimeters, but one of the critical things for this building is we want, the the rules say that you can't have anything below 18'6", including lights and all this. So the height of the court is essentially 18'6". And this front wall line, I believe that's about 15 foot, but I have a diagram that shows that, and of course there's this document for someone to refer to. But in this case, we want to keep all of the obstructions above 20 feet. So I'm showing this wall built at 20 foot high, and any kind of lighting, insulation, anything goes presumably above that. And the owner may correct me on that, but that's my understanding right now. Then I continue to look at this document and review the tin, which is this thing, and it's about 19 inches from the floor. And I specified just a pre-manufactured one because it enabled the ability to have that go down as indicated here, go down a couple inches. But this can be a built-in tin or whatever you'd like. And then at the rear wall, at the back wall, the short wall, which is about 7 feet high, we're going to be open on the back side of that, just like it is in Dayton. So that's going to be open, so we don't have to bother with this sounding board or anything like that. And then I just started looking at some photographs just to get a general idea of how it was going to be and how it was going to go together, including some from Dayton itself. And essentially modeled my structure. Now, I'm not sure, this is probably very close to 20 feet where these obstructions are. That's 15. That's probably close to 20 feet. But that's what we want there. If this is 20 feet here, we want all the obstructions above that. So while I show a wall of 20 foot high, it's probably going to take something more than that to accomplish that. And the colors, there's a guide in this same book, I believe, in this same document. You can only use 3 different colors. The 2 on the sides have to be the same color, etc. So there's a guide with regard to that as well. And I have no idea what the building regulations are down there, particularly for a commercial building exceeding 20 feet high. So I was really lost as far as that went. But in any event, I put together what I would for a residential building the best I could, because I've not designed, we're actually not allowed to design above 12 feet. So this is kind of uncharted territory for me, but I did what I could to put together a representation so that someone who's qualified can put together the rest of the drawings and hopefully get this built somewhere in Collier County, presumably Collier County, Florida. Next, I wasn't sure about the actual construction of those walls, and so I went to this manufacturer that makes these squash courts and parts for them and looked at what they were specifying for what they do. And I used their specifications here under A and B, etc., to try to figure out how to build what I was trying to put together. So that's what I used to put together the framing, as well as the panels, this 1.1 inch on the front and the side rear walls. I do not show a ceiling at all because I'm not sure how this is going to be even roofed, or I'm not even sure how the roof is going to be configured at all. So I don't show anything above that 20-foot level. And as with the walls, so with the floor, I mentioned this before, I just used a specification from a manufacturer who makes these. I used beech, and then they make these in a variety of ways. Our construction is new, so presumably our floor is fairly flat, or flat enough for this even subfloor system to work. And I use this 50 millimeter. I'm showing this 50 millimeter thickness rather than this 45, and they have all sorts of different things, which maybe someone, maybe even the owner, knows more about this than I do. But just for the purposes of this drawing, I used this Unibat 50 sports flooring. And if you were going to build this in an existing building, you might have to use one of these uneven floor ones. And then I watched some film just to get a feel for where the marker and the referee are actually located, and I read some articles. I mean, they like to be located here in the center at the front, and I guess a pie in the sky is them elevated up above this 7-foot back wall. And if you've missed this, this is a great, out of these 10, this was a good one, this rally here. But ours, this was mainly because some of them have a net back here and so forth, and some have a solid wall, but ours is this glass wall, very similar to this, very similar to a lot of these photographs. So I first put it together like this. In 20-foot walls, I just started by showing 12-inch masonry, reinforced and whatever it takes to get. I don't know how tall you can go with that. As I said, I don't know about that. But I did want to try to maintain some sort of coursing dimension, which means a little bit, 16-inch increments along these margins. And I don't think that's important at all, because I don't think the actual wall construction will be like this. So none of these dimensions are final until I get to the end of this, but I started putting this together, and I assumed that if you're going to have this, that you're going to have room for either spectation or reception and or spectation. But I put in these bleachers back here at that back wall, and I'm just going along just like I was putting this together. And this is where I meant by the coursing dimensions. So I added, some extra space to this, and did some additional things, and ended up with a 14-inch CMU wall with 1.1 inch stucco or drivette or something on the outside, just to get this put together. And I wasn't sure about this marker referee, because we know we need to have restrooms and so forth, or a restroom and a changing room, and on, and I didn't think we were going to get this marker referee elevated. So I'm not sure. This is one of the flaws of this plan, because I maintain a path through here. But to start, the doors, you know, the entry, I mean, you could design around this. I designed this just in one rectangle, long ways like this. So you could do it a variety of ways, but as it sets up right now, this is the court inside here. Here's this glass wall with its little supporting panels and the door. And then I've got a pathway through here, and then I put these bleachers in there. But maybe that's not what you're actually looking for. And I had some windows, but they frown on windows generally on these courts, and if you do have them, you should have blinds. So even though I show these windows, presumably most of those go away, but the ones that I do show go away and the door becomes solid. I don't know, but that's one of the considerations. We also don't know which direction this is ultimately going to face. But once I looked at actual bleacher, I knew we needed a little bit more if we were going to have a whole 4-tier bleacher. If this is the only one on the west coast of Florida, maybe people will show up. So I designed it this way with more of a commercial approach. And this was how the first section through here looked. And I was building those windows kind of around that seating. But we know we need to get some fixtures and so forth back here, one way or another. I don't know if you wanted a water fountain out here, so I got rid of the door down here, got rid of the windows. There's a water fountain down here. And then these were the fixtures pretty much that we need to get in here. A urinal, a toilet, 4 lockers, 2 showers, and a couple sinks, plus whatever else you would need in a bathroom like this, or a change room like this. And I started by putting something together like this. I changed it to that, and there's still a lot of space in here. This could actually be tightened up quite a bit, but I went to that with little larger showers back here. The lockers are 21 by 21. They could be 21 by 24 deep. There's space in that to do it. And this door here, whether there's any kind of dooring here, you would have to decide. I just started working with this, actually trying to get things finalized, and the only part that has to be a full 20 foot with no obstruction below that is the court portion here inside the glass. So the rest of that can come down. So I'm kind of showing something like that, and you don't need a 14-inch diaphragm, but I'm not sure what kind of structure would go across here. And this leaves this 8-foot room up here, mechanical room. But if that's not needed, then even that portion of the building could come down as well. As it is, as I got things finalized, this is kind of the final section view, and more or less what's shown in the little drawing, the second page of the drawing, is how that's put together in the section view. And this is the plan view with some of these critical dimensions in millimeters for these markings. And everything else will be built around this. I really don't think this is the wall they'll use. Maybe they use tilt-up concrete. There's a variety of construction methods they can use. So that much was really not important. Although I did end up then with a building 24.8 by 56.10 if it's put together like this. And again, there's no real room for reception or anything like that. But I wasn't sure that was what you were looking for. But certainly this is enough for a person to take it further forward. And a little more detail about this then. This is probably metal framed 6-inch wall on the interior of the structural wall. But all I did was extend the drywall on the top of that, and the stripe is to the top of that. And they want that because they want that ball to bounce a certain way. They want it to bounce not the right way when it hits the corner of that. At this end here, of course, this is that pre-manufactured tin I'm showing. this is a flat line against the wall, and up here it looked to me like, when I read the way I read the rules, they wanted this stripe up here to also deflect the ball in a funny way, in a not right way, at the top of that wall. And this was how the bathroom, etc., was shaping up from overhead. This flooring, they want this flooring, everything outside the court should be some different flooring, and I've just turned it 90 degrees, but it should be some different flooring than what is on the court. At least that's what it looked like to me from all the photos I saw, that it changes when you get to here. Also, now this floor is this basically 2-inch high, 50 millimeter high floor, so it's going to be sitting a little higher than this floor here. I mean, unless that system is extended through the whole space. And I just show I'm showing simple casing through this, just square casing, and thin at that, 1/2 inch, and I just have it dying against that glass on this end. Alright, this is the section view on page 2 of the drawing set, and these intermetric divisions are really just showing the wall striping and the rules according to them, the court size. These aren't labeled, but you will build, at least according to what I did, you would build this front wall, the inner front wall would be built at 15 foot 3 3/8, and that allows a 1/2 inch cap on top of that wall. So that's how that's put together, and you can alter that by whatever means makes sense. But outside, 20 foot, and nothing below that. All that's clear above that. And this was how this particular plan shaped up from the outside. And I don't have any idea about how much of a foundation is going to be required. The back wall shows that 14-inch masonry going all the way through, and it has the little first floor area built out with the 6-inch extension of the side wall of the court. So this does not have to happen this way, and I'm not sure how I got to that. In any event, this is the structure, and then we need, the ceiling and roof trussing or whatever is done up there as well. And this piece here, this piece can actually come down, as I recall. So yeah, this piece here, this 17'5" piece, can come down really as far as is practical. So that could come down another portion, and we already talked about that back, whether that's even required. I'm not sure what their heating requirements or the energy requirements down there are. But any number of roof shapes could go over that, and it's exciting actually to think about it. And I don't know about any further windows or doors. Furthermore, I don't know, they actually might require more than one exit depending on how you want to use this building, how it's classified down there according to their codes. But this is a good starting point, I think, for what we're trying to get to, hopefully. But now I'm going to return to that plan, actually, see if I can return to it through here. I wanted to say a few other things, not just about the plan, but about in general, and I need to get a better understanding of what it is exactly you're looking to use this building as, and or whoever going forward will have to get a better understanding of that. Because if it's, a lot of people watching a squash match on just a single court, we'd like to maximize the seating through here, and so that starts looking at expanding the size of the building. But this is kind of a minimal approach. So, but if this minimal approach were to be kept for whatever reason, this 57 by 25 approach, I would want to look at this somehow, and I don't know about possibly elevating some seating up here and whether I could squeeze in some sort of way to get up here on an upper level, or shifting these bleachers and having different entrance to the restroom so we could maximize more of the viewing area down through this prime real estate here. And if you knew the kind of lot you were going to build on, it might make more sense to make this building wider rather than longer, and it goes on and on. So, but the main purpose of this film really was just to show somebody a start anyway of what you're looking for, and I personally look forward to you giving me some feedback on what which direction we should have gone, or whether we're heading in the right direction. But I believe that will be it for now. Yeah, there's a lot to be said about both the outside structure, what can be done with that, and all of this. I just want to get something together for you before terribly long. So I'm still a day late though. But I appreciate it, and I really appreciated watching those 10 best rallies. Anyway, that's it. Thanks very much, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.